Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So yes, I have filed to run against Rick Larson. I filed back in mid-August, and we're really excited about the November elections coming up here. So my campaign has not really gotten into full swing. We just want to make sure that all the attention goes to our local candidates and we win those local races first. But as soon as we get on the other side of November 5th, we're going to be kicking into high gear. One of the things that I want to talk about now, I will tell you that my platform issues are progressive platform issues. If you guys know me, I am a Bernie Sanders guy, and if you look at Bernie Sanders' platform issues down the line, I'm going to agree with him 99% of the time, and I don't even know what the 1% I might not agree with him is. But climate change is at the top of this. And probably a lot of candidates are here, people are going to talk about climate change tonight. So I want to switch the direction a little bit and say why we have not been able to get movement on the climate crisis in Washington. And it all comes down to where the money's coming from. And the people who are representing us are taking money from industries that do not want to solve the climate crisis. They are taking money from industries that have short-term goals of profit. They do not have long-term goals of sustainability. If we do not change that mentality, as you know, the United Nations has given us a decade. I think a decade is actually very optimistic. I think we've got my concern is that if we don't get through this election cycle with some substantial changes in Congress, that we may have blown it. And I'll be honest with you, Rick Larson has had a 20-year tenure in Congressional District 2. He does not support the Green New Deal. He has taken $14.5 million in over his 20-year tenure. He raises and spends over $1 million every cycle, even when he doesn't have a challenger. He takes that money and he spends that money. Okay? He's taken almost $2 million from the defense industry, from the fossil fuel industry, and from the transportation industry. And transportation industry, you can think about Boeing. Defense industry, you can think about weapons manufacturers. These are not industries that care about the long-term sustainability of this planet. So, you have an opportunity to make some better staffing decisions in 2020. I have the climate crisis at the top of my platform. I have Medicare for All at the top of my platform, which is another issue that Rick Larson does not support. And I have committed to taking absolutely no corporate money throughout my election cycle. And should I be fortunate enough to be elected, I will not take corporate money at any point in the future. We need to have our elected officials beholden to the people, beholden to their local communities, beholden to the nation, sustainability, and beholden to the planet. Now, I brought my daughter along as a prop right here. She is a junior at Lake Stevens High School, and she has started the first environmental club at Lake Stevens High School. And I brought her here because I want her to know that part of the way we get movement on these issues is to get involved in your local political party, okay? So this is kind of her first experience, and I'm hoping to give her an avenue to come back to the Young Democrats, to be involved in the environmental community. She tells me all the time she has to deal with a lot of MAGAs over at Lake Stevens High School, but she's well-versed in environmental issues, and she takes them head-on all the time, and she doesn't back down. So I'm really proud of her for that, and I know that she's got a future here with the Young Democrats. So I also wanted to say that with no corporate PAC money, with no big dollar funding, a campaign like mine is sustained by small dollar recurring contributions. So I encourage everybody to go to my website, callforcongress.com. Now it's FOR, not the number 4, callforcongress.com. Follow me on Facebook, Call for Congress. Follow me on Twitter, Call for Congress. I am extremely excited about the bold, progressive wave of candidates that is running all across this country. I am in communication with people who are running in New York and Florida and Illinois and California and Oregon, and we are all running on this bold, no middle ground. We are going to get this problem solved. We are going to solve the climate crisis. We are all running with no corporate PAC money, and people are responding to this. People are tired of politics as usual. The last thing I want to say about local issues, one of the things that has come to my attention, has been brought to my attention because I have visited a lot of local parties lately. The people in San Juan County, people in Island County, people in Skagit County, all over on the peninsula, they are horribly affected by what's going on with the Navy Growlers right now. The chair of the Island County Democrats, a friend of mine, Steve DeHaven, has actually asked me, one of the people who first asked me to run, sent me an audio clip of the Navy Growlers flying yesterday. He lives 2 miles from the runway where they take off and land. He recorded the sound inside his house with an open window. It was 89 decibels. It is 89 decibels. Outside, it's 120 decibels. That is causing hearing loss. When people are living in that environment and they are dealing with those jets flying day and sometimes into the night, he says sometimes those jets are flying at 1 o'clock in the morning, okay? They are damaging the environment, and they are certainly damaging quality of life for people in those areas. There's a reason Rick Larson does not act on this, and it is because he's taking that defense industry money, okay? Those are his people. I am your people, okay? So I hope you'll support my campaign. I am going to be seeking the endorsement of the Young Democrats. I am going to be seeking the endorsement of every county and legislative district in Congressional District 2. I may not get them all, but I'm going to get some of them. I will be here fighting for you. Thank you. Can I take questions? Okay. Go ahead.
You have on this page sheet you have
Yes.
that you're citing some examples of some legislation.
Yes, I put, and if I can just say that, on the back table there, there's a 3-page paper that has some explanations of why I'm running, examples of the money that Rick Larson has taken, and examples of the legislative votes that he has cast over the last 20 years. So that's what Chris is referencing here. Go ahead.
So you cite a few examples here over the years, going back to 2013. There's about 6 or 7 listed. And I'm just curious, you know, I know I've spoken to some legislators before, and it seems like sometimes there's something thrown into a bill that just is ugly, and even though it might sound good on paper, there's something in there that they just can't support. And so rather than have you talked to him as to why he doesn't support these bills?
What I have looked at, and as Chris says, I have referenced 5 or 6 individual votes that are not votes that I would have taken. But what I want people to look at with those votes, and what I've identified there, is that those bills, the Republicans voted for unanimously or nearly unanimously, and Democrats voted against over 60%, sometimes up to 80%. So that's what I'm looking for. Where does the Republican Party stand on this? Where does the majority of the Democratic Party stand on this? And what I'm identifying is that Rick Larson stands with the Republicans often, not with where the Democratic Party is. So have I talked to Rick directly about these votes? No, I haven't. I know he takes the industry money, and I know he has not stood with the majority of Democrats on these votes. And these votes that I'm identifying are critical votes that affect the American people. They're votes. We are heading into what I fear is another financial crisis and housing crisis. Home values in this area are skyrocketing. People are coming to a point where they cannot purchase homes here anymore. And I have actually had people tell me that banks are starting to do subprime lending again. The reason banks are starting to do subprime lending again is because those regulations that came out of 2008 with the Dodd-Frank bill have been loosened. And one of the votes in there, I think a couple of the votes in there I have identified as being votes towards loosening those regulations. So I'm seeing Rick as standing with the financial sector. I am afraid that we are going to hit another financial crisis in the next year or two. We're going to have a lot of people lose their savings, a lot of people lose their homes, and we're going to get see CEOs and hedge fund managers getting very rich again, okay? Because we have to have that financial regulation, and Rick Larson is not standing for that financial regulation. So I don't know if that answers what you wanted to ask. No, I have not talked to Rick directly. The number of times that I have tried to engage with Rick, he does not like to be challenged in public. I mean, that's just, you know, the way it is. I have talked to Rick when, in 2005, when he voted for the bankruptcy reform bill, which was one of the things that I identified there. I was at the Aquasox Stadium, and he was giving a town hall at the Aquasox Stadium. I was fortunate enough to get the mic, and I asked him why he took that vote, and he refused to talk about it. He came to the 44th Legislative District. He wanted our early endorsement in 2016. We asked him where he stood on TPP. He said he did not have to tell us where he stood on TPP because it was not pending legislation. And I think, Trinity, you were probably there at that meeting. And because he refuses to engage with us on these issues, where he knows, you know, we're not going to agree with his answer. We know where he stands. We just want him to say publicly where he stands. And he has done that. He has publicly said, I don't stand for Medicare for all. I'm not going to vote for it. I'm not going to stand for the Green New Deal. Part of the reason he doesn't stand for the Green New Deal is because it's going to impact what's going on with the Navy. But he is not serving his constituents well, and he's not even treating his constituents respectfully. So I will be a very different type of legislator. Anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay, appreciate it. Jessica?